A few years ago, Elden Ring was the biggest myth ever, but then a new trailer released and the hype was almost as crazy as Cyberpunk. And unlike Cyberpunk, it actually met people's expectations or even surpassed them. They recently found a cure to cancer, but more people were impressed with Elden Ring instead. But is it actually that good? Kinda. Now, before I even start, I'll let you know that I am a Souls fan. So I do enjoy the Souls games, and I've even made a video on Bloodborne if you want to check it out. But I'm 40 hours into the game, and for the most part, I enjoyed it. There's so many different enemies, bosses, areas, weapons, features. There are a whole bunch of additions to the game, and for the most part, they're all good. In the very first area in Limgrave, there's so many different bosses with a huge variety of enemies along the way. Like, I don't even know how I'm supposed to describe some of these enemies, but they're all unique with their design and everything. And there's also this one enemy that sounds exactly like the Black Ops 3 meatballs. I'm gonna play the audio of both the meatballs and like the bird enemy from Elden Ring, and you'll barely hear a difference. They sound exactly the same. Anyway, I just wanted to mention it because I never heard anyone talk about it. There was just this one nasty enemy, and it was the sorcerer in the study hall. If you have a strength build like I did, it's game. Cause you just have to spam whatever projectiles you have in your inventory. She was easily the worst enemy in the entire game, and the enemy I was talking about in my Bloodborne video was her. She's not as bad as Mikolash, but not too far off. But anyway, the main bosses are equally weird, at least to the point where I'm at. There's no order of boss fights cause it's open world, but the most recent boss I fought was the Dragonkin soldier, and he's a weird lightning giant, which is completely different from the other boss I fought before him, which was Renala. Her boss had a really nice eerie vibe to it with the whatever these things are singing, and there's also the deer boss, a horseback ghost rider, and so many other cool bosses in the game. And on top of that, you got a bunch of weapons and new features like summons, where you can summon dogs, a wizard, a jellyfish, or even dying old men. I never used them myself cause I like to save my FP for the weapon arts attack, but it is an option and it's a cool way of making the game easier if you find the game to be too difficult. But the biggest addition to the game is probably the horse and how the game is open world. You can also double jump with it, which is pretty sick, but the only issue with the horse is that you can't join someone else's world with it. I like to do some of the mini bosses with my friends, and that was my only issue with the co-op. I didn't have any issues with the fingering mechanics, any connection issues, or anything of that manner. But with all that being said, it felt like the game was too big. Now, the open world is nice, and I like how the game just puts you in the world and doesn't tell you shit, like every other From Software game. And it's not like a pseudo open world like Bloodborne, it's an actual open world with so many different terrains, caves, dungeons, and everything. And there are also a bunch of secret areas you can miss, underground areas, and probably a bunch of other areas I've yet to explore. The game is probably bigger than most open world games I played, probably a bit smaller than The Witcher 3 and Red Dead Redemption 2, and bigger than Ghost of Tsushima. But once I beat around 15 bosses I want to say in the very first area, I decided it's finally time to beat Margot Robbie. But before that, I searched up like a boss list to see what I missed, and then when I looked it up, there were 30 bosses in Limgrave. This is a whole other From Software game. So I searched up where these bosses were so that I could fight them, and I eventually fought most of them, I'm pretty sure. I think I only skipped like one or two. But this is where I really enjoyed the multiplayer, cause my friend just led me to the boss fight instead of me having to search them up on Google or YouTube. Because finding these bosses and exploring the world was fun for a bit, but once I beat like half the bosses in an area, it just got boring. At one point, it becomes harder to find the bosses than it does to fight them. Cause sometimes I'd spend hours exploring to find a boss to only have it killed in a couple of hits. So what made it better for me was to have my friend lead the way, and he would bring me to the bosses I missed out on, and I wouldn't be spending hours looking for them. And if I wasn't playing with him, I'd go for the shittier alternative and search up a guide and kill the bosses from there. Now, I just want to clarify that I do like exploring when it comes to certain games. Like I loved exploring all the other From Software games. But after exploring a specific area like Limgrave for so long, I get tired of exploring the same area, so I have no motivation to keep looking for the bosses, so I end up Googling them. And I don't like doing this for Souls games especially, but I don't want to miss out on any of the bosses, and at the same time, I don't want to be spending so much time looking for them. But the fact that there are so many mini bosses raises another issue, I feel. Now again, the bosses and everything are cool with their designs, aesthetic and everything, but they're not all fun to fight. Now when you first start the game, your first boss is either Soldier of Godric or a Tree Sentinel if you skip Soldier of Godric, the tutorial boss. But I somehow skipped both of them, and my first boss was Margit. And after getting my ass handed to me like 200 times, I'm like, damn, I'll get back to him later. So I went back to spawn and found Tree Sentinel, and then got my ass handed again. So then I started fighting enough bosses to get to a level where I felt like I can beat Tree Sentinel, and then I ended up beating him with a good challenge. And then I did the same thing for Margit. I beat him third try because I already knew his moveset from before, but moving on from Margit and Godric and heading over to Liurna, almost all the bosses were easy and I one-shot nearly all of them. The only bosses that I had a challenge with were the nighttime bosses. For the other bosses I felt over-leveled and I never even farmed souls to level up. I only ever had to farm souls for like Godric or Margit, I'm pretty sure. That's it. For everything else, I just leveled up naturally by fighting bosses, which were all really easy. I don't know if it has anything to do with me playing Souls games in the past as well, but I'm not getting the same feeling as I do in previous Souls games like Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3, where I get to learn the boss's moves and slowly get more powerful to defeat them. All the bosses kept dying in a couple of hits. For reference, I'm a level 60 and I just defeated the Dragonkin soldier. And again, I'm not trying to level up by farming, I'm getting these souls naturally by fighting all the mini bosses and everything. I don't know if this is going to change anytime soon once I reach the next area, but the game has been easy for the most part, at least to the point where I'm at right now. Now this might be From Software's way of making the game easier for new players, and if that is the case, I don't know how to feel. Because at the same time, the core fanbase would still want to have that challenge to the games and defeat all the bosses instead of skipping them and beating the bosses at the right level. I'm a completionist and I even platinum games that I find to be okay, like with Horizon. And for Elden Ring, I'd like to defeat every single boss, but it comes with the cost of making the game really easy. I'm also running a strength dex build in case you guys are wondering, and these are my stats right now. From this point forward, I'm planning on leveling up Arcane or something to try and do some magic with my build, so that I don't keep getting more powerful with my attacks, and so that I can try out the different weapons and everything with the magic build. If it was another From Software game, I'd try a different build on another playthrough, but since this game is so long, my next one won't be anytime soon. But yeah, that's all I really want to talk about in this video. I don't want to give it a score because I'm not done the game. I'm only done like a third of it and it might get better. So if it does get better and after I'm completely done the game, I'll give it a final score. But it's going to be a while until I finish it. Like I said in the video, after I explore for a while or after I look at a bunch of guides and everything, I get bored and sometimes I get burnt out and then I'd like to play a different game. Like with Bugsnax for example. I started playing Bugsnax once I reached like the 25-hour mark I want to say, and it was a great refresher from this game. And I'm going to take breaks so I don't burn myself out from playing this game because I won't enjoy it as much if I kept playing it. So I'll be playing games like God of War Ragnarok, Miles Morales, and a whole bunch of other games. Let me know if there's a specific game you want me to play or make a video on, and if I finish the game I can start working on the video right away, and if not, I'd start playing the game if it's something I think I'd enjoy. I won't be playing The Last of Us Part 1 though, even though it looks incredible, cause I already played the first game. But if you subscribe to the channel, you would decrease the chances of future remakes, cause there is currently a 95% chance that more remakes will be made for games no one asked for. And these developers will continue to waste their resources on them until that number decreases. We need to get that number to 0%, so make sure to subscribe so that we get new games instead. But that's about it for this video. Later.